Hey, what do you say, ladies and gentlemen? Dan and I are excited to introduce our Buy Me a Coffee page. We've had a lot of listeners reach out and say, hey there, bub, we really appreciate what you do and want to support the show. Well, here's one way to do that without big corporations taking, 30% of the cut of your generosity. Just head over to www.buymeacoffee.com/BigBlueBanter and chip in if you'd like to support us directly. Every contribution means a lot, and it helps keep the show going strong. We appreciate each and every one of you. Thanks for listening, and have a lovely day.
Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneider, joined as always my co-host Nick Volato. It's good to be home, Nick. It's good to be back in the state of New Jersey, despite the snow, which I actually missed most of. It melted mostly by the time I got back.
I got to be honest right now, though, just looking on YouTube, you look like you're in some sort of like dank dungeon at the moment. It's dark on your end. There's no light. You were in the sunlight of Mexico last show, and everyone was like, oh, look. And then Dan was like, oh, I'm really tan and I'm up, and all this shit. And now I'm looking at you and it's like, yo, is that Dan over there? Like, it's so freaking dark in the room.
It is darker in this room. It's not as nice being back here. Let's be honest. It was nice to be there. Just the circumstances were a little tenuous at the moment, though I did see a really funny comment by somebody in the YouTube comment section. Forgot who. I'm sorry about that. It was like the Big Blue Banter versus the Mexican Cartel. Not what I had on my 2026 bingo card, but we got out safe. My family and I were home, and I actually will be going back out for a second planned trip unrelated to my family that Nick knows about. So I will actually be gone. That's why we're going to do a bunch of content starting today, more tomorrow, and then more the next day. It's going to be a week full of a lot of content because I'm going to be gone, unfortunately, this weekend. I'll be back Monday. I'm flying back Monday. And then Nick and I will likely record Monday in like afternoon, evening time, because there's going to be a lot to catch up on, I'm sure, by then. For me, Nick may do some solo stuff for the show. We haven't discussed that fully, but if something breaks and I'm not there, it might be what we have to do. Just unfortunate timing, going away for a bachelor party this coming weekend that I could not really get out of. Good friend of mine, family member. So let's just keep it that way, or at least I consider him a family member. But we're going to talk Giants football today. We're going to talk Combine today. So here's what I wanted to do for the Combine show, Nick, and I think you agreed to this. You thought this was a fun idea. We could talk about so many different things with the Combine, Nick. We can go position by position, this and that. I just want to do a show on the players that stood out to us. These could be players, Nick, that we've watched some film of, or we've seen some games of the broadcast and we like them, and then they caught our attention at the Combine. Or it could be players that we didn't really know about going into this Combine, Nick. And now we know about them from their Combine, and now we're thinking about them. Now we're going to watch tape. So I want to start with probably the biggest player at the Combine, I thought at least. Maybe ever, maybe the best Combine in the history of the Combine. Sonny Styles, the linebacker from Ohio State. For those who are new to the show, I love Sonny Styles. For those who have been listening for the last 4 weeks since I've been saying it, he's my guy for the Giants, and he's been my guy. And it's not because of this Combine, but it certainly has me intrigued. I'll just start here, Nick, by saying he had the greatest Combine ever by relative athletic score. 6'5", 244 pounds, and somehow at 6'5", 244, Nick, he ran a 4.47. That wasn't even the craziest part. He had a 1.5, 110 yard split. Remember we used to talk about that with guys like Ryan Connolly and Micah McFadden when they were like at 1.54, 1.52. Like, these guys can go downhill fast. Well, this is what Sonny Styles can do with an 11.2 broad, which is the best broad jump ever by a linebacker, and a 43.5 vert, the best ever there. According to the numbers, this was really fun. There's some really fun stuff here if you look through it on Sonny Styles. I'm missing this one now. But I thought, this is the hilarious note I wanted to bring up, Nick. Sonny Styles with a perfect 10 of 10 relative athletic score. If you plug him into any position, cornerback, safety, defensive end, linebacker, and even wide receiver, he would be the best athlete in Combine history. He was also once he gets drafted in round 1, it's a lock at this point. He will be one of 3 linebackers, Nick, who got drafted in round 1 since 2000 with a relative athletic score of 9.9 or higher. The other 2 guys were Luke Kuechly and Brian Urlacher. 2 Hall of Fame linebackers. That's the company he's in from an athleticism standpoint. He's also the only linebacker last season with a PFF grade of 85 plus in the following categories. And that's run defense, pass rush, missing out on the other one. It didn't come over. Tackling grade, run defense, and coverage grade. He's the only linebacker last year with a PFF grade of 85 plus and all those. So, I mean, you could see it when you watch the film. He's a phenomenal player already. I think he's a little bit miscast to some extent. So I want to get your take, Nick, on what your thoughts are from watching Styles. A lot of people compare him to Fred Warner. I don't really see that at all. I see more Brian Urlacher than Fred Warner. I think right now what he's great at is run defense and instincts, which are kind of insane for someone who just new to the position. The pass defense stuff that kind of gets related to Warner, I see it with the athleticism, but I think he has a long way to go to become a great pass defender, despite having a high coverage grade last season.
Yeah, the baseline for his pass defense is phenomenal, obviously, because of everything that we listed. And I thought the underdog, I should just say, they had an excellent tweet breaking him down. He's 6'5", right? That's the same size as Calvin Johnson. He's 3 pounds lighter than Derrick Henry. He has the same vertical as Nate Robinson, the basketball player, the former basketball player for the New York Knicks. And his 40 is the same as Bijan Robinson with the same broad jump as Julio Jones. Like,
doesn't make any sense.
And it's a defensive player who started at Ohio State as a safety and played 1 year at linebacker. So he is new to the instincts in the box and how to react. But I think you're right, man. It is like, I don't want to compare him to either Fred Warner or Brian Urlacher because he is so raw at the position. He's just learning it, right? But he does have more of that run defense type of grade. I just think when he is going backwards and just having the foundation that he possesses and being the natural freak that he is as an athlete, you're talking about long 33-inch arms that can close throwing windows. You're talking about the ability to flip hips. He's not a stiff guy either. Like, this is somebody who is very fluid. This is a cornerstone, a centerpiece to a defense. I mean, dude, if the Tampa 2 defense was still a prevalent thing in the National Football League, like if it was 2004 right now, like Monty Kiffin and all, they would be freaking out to get this guy like into their building to run their exotic defensive Tampa 2 type looks, man, because you can't say enough good things. And you look at the Giants, you look at what they're probably going to do. Is Bobby Okereke going to be on the roster? Doesn't really sound like it. They need linebackers. Giants sit at 5. Would he even be available at 5? I'm not sure, man. Like I could see a team possibly even trading up maybe to like the Cardinals or something like that to take a Sonny Styles or somebody in front of the Giants. Like I could see somebody who really like a defensive minded coach just making that selection. I don't know if the Jets are in a position to do that because they desperately need edge, especially after trading Jermaine Johnson. But man, if you want to talk about one person who came away from this combine just making money, even though he was rich to begin with, because a lot of people were discussing him in the top 10, it's Sonny Styles, man.
Have you seen a picture of his dad, who's his coach?
Yeah.
His dad might be a better athlete than him. Or just kidding, but his dad is jacked up. He's got the NFL bloodlines as well, Nick, which I love with any prospect. It's something that I've always discussed. And I think the question is honestly shifted, Nick, from is it too rich for the Giants to take Sonny Styles at 5 to will he even be on the board?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what the question is now shifted to, unfortunately. I never thought it was too rich. Again, I've been talking about him for 3 weeks now. I just think he's the best non-quarterback in this draft. That's the best non-quarterback prospect. He's not the best non-quarterback player right now. You can make a case that Bain may be that, even though I don't think he's the best non-quarterback prospect, because it's the difference between being a great football player at the college level and a prospect and how you translate to the NFL game. Sonny Styles, to me, has everything you need to translate to the NFL game. Plus, he's already pretty damn good on tape in all aspects of the game. The other thing is, like, when you mention, which is interesting, like the Jets clearly to me seem like a team that is setting their situation up. Like they traded for T'Vondre Sweat, they traded away an edge, and maybe they're going to draft an edge, right? A pass rusher. But like, if the interesting thing, dude, is if you look at some of the numbers, like the times where the Ohio State actually used Sonny Styles as a pass rusher, you compare it to Arvell Reese, he has better numbers. Then you look at kind of the numbers from just the frame and the size and the speed standpoint at 6'5", 240. Like there's a case to be made that some coach might be like, I could also turn Sonny Styles into an edge. Like that's the craziest thing. Like it's not foreign to think he could possibly be a really good edge pass rusher as well. You could line him up really anywhere on your defense, I think, and potentially get it. This to me, I look at this player and this prospect, and I think he's, for me, for my money, the guy I would want to bet on over anyone in this class for what I'm looking for, which is upside, potential gold jack, potential Hall of Fame cornerstone of your defense, the guy that can change this Giants defense. I think about him and Carter at the second level, Nick. I just think the Giants could do awesome things right away on the defense side of the ball. So really excited about him. Yeah,
right there with you. I want to say it's 2 years as linebacker, but like, again, this is the type of linebacker who they will align as the apex defender. Like if you get caught in base personnel against a 12 personnel package that has athletic tight ends, you have a player like Sonny Styles who's like, oh, okay, they're aligning their athletic tight end out in the slot. Easy. I'm going to go out and cover him. Oh, they want to put the running back out wide because he's a mismatch out there. Got it. Right. Like he eliminates that threat that the offense usually employs against the defense when they want to get creative and try to catch you in a mismatch, because he has that DB background and because he's the freak athlete that we've been discussing.
Yeah. And also, in addition to that, Nick, it's like from the Giants' standpoint and just from the standpoint overall of drafting a player like this, you are potentially getting, at least from my evaluation, the leader of your defense in some ways. Like when I heard him speak at the combine, I heard exactly what I want to hear from a player. You know, it wasn't like I was listening to Mekhi Lemon, right?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I stepped on your joke. I'm sorry, man.
Yeah, it's okay. It's an interesting point though, because you and I have discussed this, dude. I know it's a little bit, I don't want to say odd. I know it's a little bit presumptuous to evaluate these players on their combine interviews, but you and I have discussed this, man. We didn't love listening to Deontay Banks
or Kadarius Toney.
We didn't love at all listening to Kadarius Toney. And I don't want to judge a player based on how they sound. It's not great way to do things. So I want to make that clear. This is not a fully borne out thought for me. But I listen to Sonny Styles, man, and I hear a true leader. I hear somebody who could actually get into that locker room and get everybody to play their best football and get everybody to play their asses off. Like the Giants had those leaders at linebacker when they were in the 86, 90 years, when they had those guys at the second level that made that defense so special. I feel like Styles will be one of those players personally. To me, he's top on my board. He's been top on my board for a while now. And again, like I said, he's the only linebacker last year who was great on tape, 91.6 tackling grade, 87.4 run defense grade. I don't want to go by the grades, but you watch the tape, you see it. And then he's like an unreal athlete. So I don't know exactly what's holding him back from being a good pick other than positional value argument.
And that's where it gets interesting, right? And I agree when it comes to just like Styles speaking with conviction, you can see how he can like captivate a room. And that those are he's 21 years old. He's a kid, but he played a Big Ten program and was one of the leaders on that defense. But to your previous point about the positional value, it's positional value, but it's also many other ways that you can fill this need. Now, this is a massive need for the New York Giants. And we've seen Joe Schoen in the past. And we've talked about this on the podcast. We've seen Joe Schoen in the past, whenever there's a vulnerability on the roster, he poured assets to correct that vulnerability. He did it with the defensive line when he got Ashawn Robinson, Raheem Nunez-Roches when they had Leonard Williams still on the roster. And then they let them go. And that was, an oversight. He's done it at tight end. He's done it at offensive line when he signed John Runyon and Jermaine Illuminor. He did it at quarterback last year. I think linebacker is going to be that position this year, and Sonny Styles could factor into that. But if it's not Sonny Styles for one reason or another, whether he's selected or the Giants opt to go in another direction, you have a lot of other linebackers, not just in free agency, which the Giants will look to explore, but also in this draft class that are freak athletes and who can fill a role and be that Mike starting linebacker for your defense. And this is one of the more loaded linebacker draft classes we've seen in a while, man. And it's not just because of combine athleticism. It's also production on the field. It's also utility. It's also the ability to execute a variety of different roles, not just being a run thumper, not just being a pass guy, not being a sub-package safety linebacker, DB type of player, but guys who have a total package, like Jake Golday from Cincinnati and players like that. So this is Jacob Rodriguez is another one, man. And I love that they ran the three cone. I love that Sonny Styles ran the three cone. I know it was a 709, which you typically want your three cone to be in the sixes, but he didn't need to do that. You know what I mean? He already owned the combine.
244. I never would have expected his three cone to be in the sixes.
Exactly. But the sheer fact that he did it. Is like, because how many running backs did the three? Like, so many people are opting out of the three cone.
I know a lot of people are just opting out of the drills they don't think they'll be good at anymore. Like I saw that, it was like the greatest, basically the best combine ever overall across the board. And then, I think it was maybe, it might've been Mike Renner from CBS Sports who mentioned of course it's the best combine ever because you're having more opt-outs than ever before on specific drills where these people think they wouldn't be good at.
Exactly. It's the Evan Neal. Evan Neal's a trailblazer. All right. And Evan Neal, he opted out of the entire combine. He's like, dude, I'm going to get exposed. I'm just going to rely on the fact that I was just bigger and stronger than all the other 18 and 19-year-olds I was playing against. Yeah. So the Evan Neal, the trailblazer, but you're right. And that is the reason why. Now there were a bunch of freak athletes in this draft class, but if I'm not good at something, I'm not going to freaking do it. And that seems to be the trend for a lot of these kids coming into the NFL.
And you mentioned a lot of things that I want to unpack next because, on this list of players that caught my attention, there's a lot of linebackers. And we'll talk about that in a moment. And the reason being, I think you're right. I think what we're going to see is a total overhaul of the linebacker position from John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh. That was my first slip of that, or maybe my second. There'll be more. And that's amazing because the class is so loaded with linebacker talent, and there's options in free agency and via trade. And it starts with something you mentioned earlier, which we'll talk a little bit more about tomorrow, a rumor from Dan Duggan, a report from Dan Duggan that he expects Bobby Okereke to be released by the Giants, and that'll save them about $9 million in cap space. But to me, what that says is, look, Bobby, this is how I'm viewing it, Nick. I think Bobby can still play to some level, but what that's telling me is they want to overhaul that position, and they don't want to throw $10 million at a player who's aging and has questionable tape when they have all these other options at linebacker. And as we get forward, and we'll talk about some other reports of players the Giants might trade for at linebacker, I want to talk about these prospects who stood out, because the next guy to mention for sure to me is Jacob Rodriguez, the Texas Tech linebacker. I heard some discussion before the combine, Nick, like, he'll probably be like there on day 2, maybe even day 3. And I heard like, but probably day 2, because he's awesome on tape and he's super productive, but he's not going to be athletic. Well, that was all wrong, because Jacob Rodriguez, who was arguably, I think by the numbers, a lot more productive than Sonny Styles last year, playing different roles within that defense. It's a totally different defense. And at some point with you, Nick, I do want to discuss the whole take of, like, I see a lot of people like so burned by Isaiah Simmons that they don't want to take Sonny Styles. It's like, well, did you watch these two players? Because they played completely different roles in completely different defensive systems at the collegiate level. And I think you could speak to that even more than I could when it comes to Styles versus Simmons. But when it comes to Jacob Rodriguez, he played a role that was uber productive. And he's, according to, I think this was, I'm trying to remember who tweeted this. I'm sorry, I don't have it. But according to somebody, the only linebacker prospect since 2015 with an RAS score of 9.5 or higher and a coverage grade of 92.0, at least one college season, because he was great in coverage, are Jacob Rodriguez. And, well, that tweet got cut off, so that was bad podcasting right there. But let me talk about some other things when it comes to Jacob Rodriguez. He had the best 3-cone of any linebacker in this class at the combine, a 6.903 cone for Jacob Rodriguez. He also had the best short shuttle of any linebacker in this class, a 4.19 short shuttle. He reached a top speed of 18.43 during the back pedal and react drill, the fastest by any linebacker over the last 5 years. And he traveled nearly full mile per hour faster than the next closest linebacker, Arvell Reese, who was 17.49 miles per hour. He ran a 4.57 Jacob Rodriguez with a 1.56 10-yard split, a 38.5 vert, which was unexpected, a 10.1 broad, and we talked about the short shuttle and the 3-cone. And actually, it did get cut off, but the only linebacker since 2015 with a 9.5 relative athletic score and a coverage grade over 92 were Jack Campbell from Iowa, who I believe was a late first-round pick, maybe a second-round pick, and Jacob Rodriguez. And then when you watch the tape, you just see constant production, forced fumbles, fumble recoveries, tackles, interceptions. Like, I think he earned himself a chance to be a back-end first-round pick, but I think he'll likely be an early day 2 pick now, top 40 guy.
And it could be a possible option for the Giants when it comes to their
37.
second-round pick, depending on what the Giants do, obviously, in round 1. And he has the stash, big stash guy. He's rocking that. No, but he had one of the more impressive on-field drills when it was the back pedal and the side shuffle. It was just so crisp, his footwork. Everything was so controlled. He's such a controlled mover, Jacob Rodriguez. And I haven't gotten to that defense yet, and I am excited to dive into it. But once I do, I will we'll be doing a draft profile on a player like him.
Oh, yeah. Sure. Yeah, I think honestly at this point, I'll be shocked if he gets outside of the top 40. He's going to open up a lot of eyes. Like, if you have the profile he has from a production standpoint, Nick, and the athleticism that he proved to have, which is really more than anyone could have ever expected, that's a top 40 player. Now, the question is, Nick, as it pertains to the Giants, like, does it give you more reason to potentially pass on a player like Sonny Styles, knowing you can get Jacob Rodriguez and a few other players we're about to talk about the linebacker position who stood out in the later rounds?
Yeah, I mean, it would depend on what the Giants do at right tackle, but
Right.
because we'll talk about some of those guys a little bit later.
Yeah, Fano.
I don't want to look, if Sonny Styles is your guy, I think you go with Sonny Styles, and you don't have to be like, well, who's going to be around, because we don't know which one of these guys is going to be around, and who the Giants, specifically Jannard Wilson, John Harbaugh, who they value not just as football players, but as people. And it does seem like, I mean, these are just rumors at this point, but the Giants are pretty interested in what Sonny Styles offers on both of those fronts. But you're right, man. This is a deeper linebacker class. So all of this is going to be considered by the New York Giants, because we talked about Rodriguez. Jake Golday from Cincinnati is another one that we mentioned. He's a little bit long. Like with Rodriguez, one thing that I am limited about or I feel like could be a
Okay.
limitation for him, is the short arms, right? Like he
Yep.
has shorter arms, sub 31-inch arms. Like a guy like Sonny Styles does not have that issue. Gold Day is a hair under 32-inch arms, and he's still a freak athlete as well. And I did watch his film. He looks like he's 6'4.5", 239. He looks every bit of that out there, right? Like he looks freaking massive in the middle of a defense. So yeah, no, he's
Former
another
edge
one.
player too, by the way.
Yes, former edge player. It's an interesting linebacker class. It's a good time to need a linebacker, but the Giants don't just need a linebacker. They need multiple linebackers. Like you can argue that they need 3 linebackers. And I don't think the Giants, especially if they move on from Okereke, which it seems like there are reports suggesting that's going to happen, Giants aren't going to go into the 2026 season with two rookies at linebacker, or just like they're going to add a veteran as well. And there are a few veteran linebackers that the Giants could add. And there are certain names we'll probably go over a little bit more tomorrow, but people that Joe Shane drafted, like Tremaine Edmonds, is somebody who might be available from the Chicago Bears, another player with insanely long arms who, he was drafted in like 2018, but he's only like 26, 27 years old. Because if I remember correctly, he's out of Virginia Tech. He was like 20 years old when he was drafted. He was really young. So I do expect an absolute overhaul of this position in general. I do wonder, though, is Micah McFadden involved in it at all? Because like that's a cheap contract that you can get. And I think he fits the aggressive nature of what Denard Wilson wants to do, even though he has some limitations too.
And that'll be an interesting player to talk about too, as we get forward. There's a lot of interesting. We'll talk more about that tomorrow. We're going to talk about all Giants rumors and players currently under contract, players like McFadden, Tremaine Edmonds, who is in rumors for trade rumors with the Giants potentially. But as far as the combine goes, like this is definitely not just a rankings list, Nick, of the best linebackers in this class, because it's just the linebackers that stood out to me at the combine. Like I'm going to jump to another player here, but there's still CJ Allen as well, who I'm super interested in from Georgia, who I think could be a really good linebacker. I mean, I just never seen a linebacker class like this. But the next player I want to talk about, who I started to watch before the combine, who caught my attention and I'm really interested in, is Anthony Hill Jr., the linebacker from Texas. And look, his tape was awesome. I started watching him and I was really excited about him and considering him as a potential player at 37 for the Giants in round 2. Then he backed it up with an unbelievable combine. These guys are it's just interesting to me how it's like this linebacker class among all the positions that showed out at the combine. This was the position. This was the group that had the tape and had the hype to back it up. But there were questions: would these guys be athletic enough to be difference makers to the next level? And according to the RAS score, the relative athletic score, he had a 9.93 out of possible 10. Anthony Hill Jr. He's the 25th most athletic linebacker out of the last 3,215 linebackers since 1987. 6'2", 238 with a 4.51 40, a 1.56 10-yard split. 37-inch vert and a 10.5 broad. I mean, those numbers are insane to go along with the fact that he looks really good on tape. And he's a player who I'm super interested in, man. It's another guy, like if the Giants miss on Styles at 5, there will be options at 37 that could fit that mold that we talked about a lot last year. Like, where were some of the best picks in the draft last year? One of the best picks in the entire draft class was when the Cleveland Browns took a kid that we loved his tape of. We said, this guy's really good. He's probably one of the 20 best players in the class, but he's going to go outside of the top 35 because he's a linebacker. And I'm going to miss
Carson Schlesinger.
Right Schlesinger. Yeah. I always get that name wrong. And he was Defensive Rookie of the Year, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. He ended up winning that award over Abdul Carter. Dude. And he was a stud. He changed their whole defense. When he was injured for those few games, the Browns defense like really stunk. And that shows it shows how undervalued a good inside linebacker can be for a defense. So Anthony Hill Jr. is somebody who I'm super interested in, and he had a great combine.
Yeah, another one who's big out there, right? Like you can see his presence. He's not as massive or as maybe long as some of these other guys, but you just like notice his presence, and the fact that he wears number 0 just has a certain swag to it. That's pretty cool. But pass coverage, patience, smarts. He had this interception, I think it was against Georgia, where he like drops back in coverage and he's reading the quarterback. He sees the quarterback, like the quarterback's looking at the safety. Once the quarterback declares, all right, I'm going to look to my left now, he sinks underneath his left. He does a slight robot, gets his eyes back on the quarterback, notices the quarterback's throwing the slant, and then just flips his hips and undercuts it effortlessly and picks it off.
Love that.
I think he's only had like 2 or 3 interceptions in his career, but you could see that there is an intelligence there. And then when he goes into contact, he's going into contact and knock that football out, dude, right? He's also somebody who adds a little bit of value as a pass rusher too. And I think that's going to assist what Denard Wilson wants to do. So that's another perfect. I'm glad you brought up Anthony Hill Jr. Texas defense.
Big fan of Anthony Hill Jr.
Yeah. Texas defense. So just
I want more
another.
picks. I don't know how to get them, but we need more picks. I like the depth in this class, man. I really do. There are a
Well,
lot of prospects I like in this class.
I know, man. That's it. I think you said it 2 shows ago. It's like it's not necessarily like that blue chip top
Yep.
type of class. I think there are blue chip guys, but not a ton of them. But there's a lot of value on day 2 and day 3. And maybe the Giants could trade down. Who knows? But like, it takes 2 to tango, as we always say.
Yeah, it seems like people keep talking to me about this trade down scenario at 5. I'm going to put the percentages like 2%. You just so rarely see a trade up unless it's for a quarterback or occasionally like a Julio Jones or like a small trade up for Devontae Smith, something like that. I guess maybe the Giants could be a small trade up team, like some team wants to go to 7-5. That's possible, Nick, which will probably yield them the day 3 pick they need, or I'm sorry, the day 2 pick that they want so desperately and they need. So I guess it's possible that could happen. I don't want to rule that out.
Would the Saints want to trade up ahead of the Browns or the Commanders?
That's
like
the
would the
question.
Chiefs?
Right. That's a question you got to ask yourself.
So this is where it gets interesting because you said the Chiefs aren't trading up, and I was like, the Chiefs might be a team that.
No, they might. I shouldn't say that.
Might, right? Like
Small
because
trade up.
If they say they love, right?
Yeah.
The Saints are a team that they got to get in front of.
Yes, true. The Saints could easily take him, but the problem is like I just think about the Chiefs and I'm like, well, there was a time when the Chiefs finally did it and they drafted Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the first round and it totally fell flat in their face. So are they going to be using that to impact their decision to potentially draft Love? Like, is Love what that team needs? I'm not even sure about that. I mean, it would be pretty sick to watch him in the passing game with Patrick Mahomes. Don't get me wrong.
I hate that I'm laughing right now. And this is I'm laughing right now because my older brother gave Clyde Edwards-Helaire a nickname, and now every time I hear Clyde Edwards' name, I say this in Eric Cartman's voice. I say Clyde Frog. He calls him Clyde Frog. And every time my older brother has heard Clyde Edwards-Helaire's name, he goes Clyde Frog. Just like he slips.
That's a South Park reference that it escapes me. I kind of know it, but I don't really.
It's one of his one of Cartman's stuffed animals, especially earlier in the season was Clyde Frog. And then he actually came back and had a bigger role towards like the middle seasons, Clyde Frog.
Yeah.
But yeah, my older brother, he's going to laugh. He's going to listen to this and he's going to be like, that's hilarious. But like, yeah, he ruins names like that. And Clyde Frog and Clyde Edwards. Yeah, he absolutely ruins so many people when it comes to shit like this. But yeah, it's amazing. But the thing about like those are just two, like, I think they're separate situations, right? Like you're right, they got burnt on it, but no one thought Clyde Edwards-Helaire was Jeremiah Love. Like no one like Love. Love
no, you're right.
Has like Bijan, like that's Bijan level gravitas.
Yeah, he's a better prospect than Genty, which is crazy because Genty was like the only prospect besides Scadaboo who forced more than 100 missed tackles. But he was a great prospect too.
And again, we don't have to spend too much time on this, but are the Chiefs, do they have their offensive line in order to maximize that talent? Because it just seems like Saquon was wasted with the New York Giants because the Giants didn't have an offensive line. Bijan is the one who it's like, oh, that was a top 10 pick, but it's kind of working out, right? Because Atlanta has a strong offensive line.
Working out, I guess.
Kind of working out. But Genty, like people are blaming Genty. It's like, who is Genty running behind? Right? Like Genty doesn't have a shot, dude. He doesn't have a chance. But when you have Patrick Mahomes, you're going to get those 2 high shells. And then with Love, your offensive line doesn't really need to be perfect, but is it good enough to maximize that talent? And I think you can argue that it is, but they also have other holes that need to be mended over there in Kansas City. But that's where the Giants trade up could happen, I think, is if there is an actual battle for somebody really coveting the skill set of Jeremiah Love, the Notre Dame running back.
Yep, I love it. The last linebacker we want to talk about, or last one I want to talk about that caught my attention, Nick, is Jake Goldie, you mentioned before. I'll just say one thing on Goldie because he's a super interesting prospect. Just converted from edge to linebacker. This caught my attention. This is
Darian Beavers light, by the way. He's actually more than Darian Beavers, but he was a Cincinnati linebacker or edge that transitioned to linebacker.
Converted. Totally different players though. But
great.
Yeah. This is from Adam Carter, the only linebacker prospect since 2015 with the following production in one college season. This is after Goldie converted to inside backer. Run defensive grade at least 90, coverage grade at least 80, relative athletic score at least 950. The company he joins, the only people, are Leighton Vander Esch and Fred Warner. And both Leighton Vander Esch and Fred Warner are like when healthy, Hall of Fame level linebackers. I don't know if you want to say that with Vander Esch. I do. I remember the Cowboys days before he had the injuries. He was a playing at an all-pro Hall of Fame type level, maybe I'll just give all-pro to him and Hall of Fame to Warner, and that's fine. I'll walk that back a little. But all-pro when healthy, Leighton Vander Esch, without a doubt. Also, like Goldie, and I hope that's how you pronounce his name, Goldie. It may be Gold.
I think it's Golday. I think it's Golday.
Yeah, it's probably Golday. Golday, like Golday, Warner and Vander Esch were both also small school backers. You can't even be like, well, those guys played at the high level of the SEC and Golday didn't. It's similar type level competition for Vander Esch and Warner. You could just see it when you watch with Warner. You could just see it when you watch his tape. I'm not comparing Golday to Warner by any means, but he's a super interesting prospect as well to me, Golday. And I don't know where he's going to go, but I think he's going to go a lot higher than people are projecting right now.
I think he's one of those early day 2 guys.
Yeah,
I think that's where he's being projected, right?
Okay, I thought he was projected a little later. Okay, that's fair.
A lot of it also depends. Again, the deeper linebacker, there could be people who like, oh, well, we have him in the 2nd tier, but we have a big cluster in 3rd tier. We're comfortable with that. And we really need like all that kind of stuff. But yeah, the linebackers, very interesting. There's also other position groups to go over too. Yeah. So where do we want to direct our attention? Maybe we go just if we want to stay at 5. Just because
you just throw out people who intrigue you. I'm just going by the people who stood out to me. No like order to it.
Yeah, well, I want to stay at 5 for a second, right?
Yes.
Because Carnell Tate, and I want to bring Carnell Tate up because Carnell Tate, Ohio State wide receiver, he ran slower than a lot of people believed, and people are kind of a little hesitant and tentative. And I just wanted to kind of ask you, or at least bring up the conversation of, does this really alter his draft grade all that much for you? For me personally, like I wasn't ever somebody who was like, I want the Giants to go with Carnell Tate. I don't really consider him in that same light as like a Malik Neighbors type of prospect. I think he's a good football player. I think he'll be a good pro, but I think the Giants have other needs right now that I don't know if I want to invest a top 5 pick into a Carnell Tate. But Carnell Tate comes out there and he ran, what was it? I think a 4. I'm trying to bring up the exact number, a 4.53 in the 40. And he came
in sub 200 as well.
Yeah, like 190. And this is somebody who is a deep threat. At 4.53, that's not a great thing. And he is a contested catch guy. Being sub 200, that's not a great thing. But when you watch him play football, he's a technician. His feet, very good. Excellent route runner, right? Like, so I wanted to get your opinion on how much this doesn't help him. There's no way to look at this and be like, oh, he helped himself. But how much does he actually, did he actually hurt himself?
I don't think he hurt himself that much with NFL teams, because I think Schefter or somebody tweeted like he's faster than what he ran. And I think that's fair to say. Like you watch the tape.
That's agent shit.
That is agent driven. You're right.
Yeah.
But I think you can watch him on tape and you see that. At the same time though, Nick, like if I'm drafting a receiver at 5, he also has to be a special athlete. I don't want just a look, it's for me, like that's how I stand. And I know there's big disagreement among Giants fans. A lot of Giants fans are like, F it, our receivers suck. You just take receiver, just keep pounding the table at receiver, and you got to keep doing it. Because you can't do it in free agency, which makes sense. Free agency is the worst place to get receiver. I get all that. I also feel like I watched the Giants offense be like 11th in EPA last year with no receivers on the field. So how much am I really thinking that receivers are so important to moving the football and scoring when I just watched that? And I know I get Neighbors back that I didn't have last year, potentially some development from a player like Theo Johnson, among other players you can get in a really deep class at wide receiver, in my opinion, which I think you can, if they get an extra 3rd round pick or even in round 4 or 2. And that's what I think about. And I for a player like Tate to run that, for me to even have considered him, I think he would have had to be a special difference-making athlete. I don't think I would have considered him regardless. And yet, I feel like I would bet on him before any other receiver in this class. And that's besides Tyson, but Tyson's injury history just makes me never want to take that at 5. Exactly. And I would never take Mekhi Lemon after listening to him, to be honest, at 5. I would never take him anyway at that size.
That was very odd. That was a very
and he could be a great player. He could be the next Amon-Ra St. Brown type player, but like, I don't care. Like I don't, that interview was odd, and his size, like it's just not something. It's top 5 pick, man. You don't like receivers are crazy to me there, unless it's Neighbors or something.
Corey Davis. No, no, I think Carnell Tate's a very good football player.
But he is.
I'm right there with you. And this doesn't help him. It does hurt him slightly for all the reasons that you say. I think he'll come into the league and still be somebody who can win contested catches, somebody who can create separation similar to like,
great player
like Jackson Smith. And I don't think he's as crisp of a route runner as Jackson Smith and Jigba, but I was also a massive Jackson Smith and Jigba fan. And I'm not just making the whole like, oh, they're Buckeyes, they're the same thing. But like, those Brian Hartline coach dudes, they come in and they understand the nuance of how to create separation independent of your athletic ability.
Right.
So someone like Carnell Tate, he's going to be able to do that at the NFL level, but I don't really have any interest in selecting a receiver if the Giants stay at 5. Like my interest is at right tackle if the Giants don't address it in free agency or one of these defensive players. Guys, quick story. Last year, I realized I was doing that classic thing where you only go to the doctor if something is actively on fire. And honestly, no more emergencies. It's 2026. We're done waiting until night sweats turn into all day sweats. Walking it off for 6 months doesn't work, or your fingers go numb while texting, I'm fine. If something feels off, it's time to get it checked out. And look, more than the gym matters. Working out is great, but real health also means consistent annual checkups, getting weird stuff looked at, and taking care of your mental health. That's where ZocDoc comes in. Remember, that doctor's appointment you were supposed to make, the dentist cleaning, the overdue annual checkup, or the dermatologist visit you keep putting off, ZocDoc makes it stupidly easy. It's a free app and website where you can find in-network doctors, compare reviews, see real availability, and book instantly, sometimes even same day. I use this, and you should too. Stop putting off these doctor appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/banter to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That's ZocDoc.com/banter. Zulu, Oscar, Charlie, Delta, Oscar, Charlie.com/banter. Dan and I are excited to talk about the Big Blue Banter group chat we've got going on with Chat BCC, the group chat platform where you can interact with fans and hosts of your favorite podcasts. We've been using Chat BCC to talk to our listeners about the hottest topics in football and just to kind of shoot the breeze about whatever's on our mind. Every day, one of us is in that chat giving our thoughts and hearing from listeners on their takes on what's going on in football, what's going on with the New York Giants. It's a lot of fun. If you want to come crash our group chat, it's as easy as sending a text. Head to BigBlueBanter.chat in any URL, enter your number, and start chatting with us and the Big Blue Banter faithful. I 100% advocate for Omaha Steaks because Omaha Steaks actually sent me multiple boxes of their delicious product. They took care of me. And look, in this industry, some advertisers don't do that. They'll ask for a personal endorsement that is completely fictitious. I might as well talk to you about Bigfoot or quality New York Giants football because they don't exist. But Omaha Steaks, they take care of their people. They sent me real steaks, perfectly aged for tenderness, hand cut by master butchers, plus chicken and other succulent sustenance. Omaha Steaks, if you're listening, I support you. And the listeners of the Big Blue Banter podcast should too. And you can. Save big on gourmet gifts and holiday favorites with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during their Sizzle All the Way sale. And for an extra $35 off, use promo code BANTER at checkout. Terms apply. See site for details. That's omahasteaks.com, code BANTER. Thanks again. I wear underwear every day, and I ensure that they're clean. But it's been a while since I switched it up, you know? It was always the same cycle. Order a pack, hope they fit, deal with the riding up, the stretching out, or just being comfortable by the end of the day. So when I found out Skims was making underwear for men, I was genuinely excited. I got friends who wear Skims for years and constantly talk about how comfortable everything is. So I figured if they nailed it for women, they were definitely going to come through for men too. I've tried a few styles, but my favorite has to be the Skims Cotton 5-inch boxer brief. The fit is unreal. They hit perfectly at the thigh and actually stay there. No riding up, no bagging out, no adjusting throughout the day. The fabric is soft, breathable, and somehow feels supportive without being too restrictive on your little friends down there. I can wear them all day, working, traveling, working out, and they still feel just as good at night as they do in the morning. What surprised me most is how confident and comfortable they make me feel. Once you find underwear that truly fits, you realize how much the wrong pair has been holding you back. At this point, I don't really see myself going back to anything else. Skims just does it better. Shop Skims Men at skims.com. Let them know we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. And if you're looking for the perfect gifts this season, the Skims holiday shop is now open at skims.com. Endurance athletes don't really talk about this, but heavy training can quietly wreck sexual performance. Long cardio sessions, high cortisol, bad sleep, under recovery, all of that hits the same systems that control hormones and blood flow. And when circulation drops, performance drops everywhere, including down there, bub. Most guys reach for stimulants or prescriptions, but that's a blunt downstream fix. That's where Joy Mode comes in. Nitric oxide is the master switch for blood flow, endurance, and long-term vascular health. Joy Mode supports nitric oxide production with real doses of citrulline and arginine nitrate, not token amounts, so your body improves circulation naturally. And it works! 83% of men noticed a boost in sexual performance, and 73% felt positive effects even without prior ED issues. You tear one open, mix it with water like an electrolyte packet, and you're good. Take it 45 minutes to a few hours before you do the deed, or use it daily to raise your baseline, just like training adaptations. If you want to support sexual performance the same way you support training and recovery, go to tryjoymode.com/banter or use code BANTER for 20% off at checkout. Joy Mode, the pre-workout for blood flow.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I don't want to repeat myself, Nick, but for wide receiver at 5, it just has to be a special prospect for me to ever really consider it. I'm just not, it's not how I want to build my rosters.
And we thought Malik was.
And Malik was.
Yeah,
we knew Malik was the best player on the board for the Giants by far at the time. That was our take. We didn't
especially
want
after Alt went at 5.
What'd you say?
Especially after Alt went at 5, we were like,
yes.
Oh, come on.
But I was neighbors over Alt
Same.
too, just because we had Neil at the time, and I still wanted to bank some hope that Neil would be a guy for us for a long term. And
I would say we had maybe like 10% hope. We
didn't have much hope, but it was just like we also thought just Neighbors was so special. You said it the minute you're like the first time you watch this tape, you're like, it's gonna be a Dan Schneider guy. And there are certain receivers that are my guys. Tate and Lemon and Tyson are not one of them, though. Tyson, I do really like his tape, but he's just, that injury history scares the F out of me.
Scary, yeah.
We'll talk about some sleeper prospects and some prospects that are in play for the Giants in day 2 and round 2 in a bit. But I do want to kind of wrap up with some day 1 guys for the Giants, potential day 1 guys that stood out to me at the combine. And then we'll kind of circle back to that. And the first one for me is going to be Spencer Fano, the offensive tackle out of Utah. I mean, you couldn't have had a better combine than Spencer Fano, with the exception of the short arms and that aspect of it. From an athleticism standpoint, and from just watching the drills, like I'm sure you saw Fano run or operate the mirror drill. He just looks so freaking good footwork wise. And what do we always say, or what do I always say about offensive tackles since the Charles Cross draft, where both you and I were higher on Cross than consensus among Giants fans? A lot of Giants fans were just out on Cross. We were kind of like, I don't know, like after Neal, who we liked, we probably like Cross second best. And that was not a common take. And I feel like he's somehow been the best of that class. But Fano, 4.67, and I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name. I hope it is, out of Utah, the offense tackle. 4.67 shuttle. Unreal shuttle at his size. 99th percentile speed score, 90th percentile burst score, 85th percentile agility score. One of the best athletes we've seen at the offensive tackle position in a while. You could see it, like I said, in that mirror drill, the way he moves. So awesome to watch on tape too, as well. Like I've seen him in open space. Like you get some shades of like, can this guy be like a weapon in the run game potentially if the right coach gets his hands on him, which is something the Giants want to do. So what were your thoughts on Fano and potentially being in play at 5?
I mean, I think that's certainly a possibility. Again, a lot of it is contingent on what the Giants do in free agency, but with Spencer Fano specifically, it reminds me a little bit of Grant Barton. Like this guy can play any of these positions, not necessarily how they play, but just the fact that it's like, yo, this guy gets kicked inside because of his shorter arms. I wouldn't be overly shocked, but I think he deserves the opportunity to at least give it a shot at right tackle. That's what he played at Utah. And I love watching when you're watching the combine and you just see how they move relative to the other people who are around them. Right.
Yeah.
And then when someone is different, you're like, that guy's different, right? Like the safety from Oregon was like this, right? Like when he did the back pedal drill, Theneman, I think his name is.
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce him.
Yeah, and then Spencer Fano was 100% like that. And again, 32 and 1/8 inch arms. That's not ideal for a right tackle. 33 is usually the benchmark that you want to hit. It's sub that, but there have been successful tackles who have had those short arms. But yeah, he would be in consideration. Again, a lot of it is depending on what happens with Jermaine Illuminor, but I love the way he moves. Just he's controlled, man. He's controlled. When you're that big, when you are over 300 pounds, he's 311 pounds, he's 6'5.5", and he's so crisp and controlled with how he starts, how he stops, how he starts, how he redirects, how he can flip his hips, how he can sink his hips, how he can stay low and maintain force and power and explode through contact, which you see in the bag drills, which you see all throughout his tape. That's an offensive lineman right there. And if his arms are a little bit shorter, but he still has the technical prowess to succeed, I'm going to be interested in that.
That's a great way to describe it. I think that's how it stands for you and I, at least for me, for sure. That's how it stands when I'm watching offensive line prospects. I want to see specifically tackles, but I'll say this is across the board for all offensive line. I want to see how you move at your weight, and are you able to, are your feet quick? Are you able to move under your weight like this kid is? And I just feel like when you get those athletes, it helps, because it obviously is going to take great coaching too. Like at the next level, the Giants, their offensive line coach, whoever he joins, like, to really unlock that player. But to me, it's really comes down to the movement skills for offensive linemen as far as what I want to gamble on. Now, I will say this, his arm length, you mentioned it's a little tick under what it's supposed to be. I think it actually saw a comparison on NFL Network that it's like the exact same as Penei Sewell, the best right tackle in football. The problem is, like, when you watch Sewell at Oregon and when you watch Fano, like, they are different level prospects. I agree. Like, I would say you could make the case that Fano has like movement skills similar to what Sewell had, but Sewell's power at that move was just not, it's at a different level than Fano. So I don't want to compare those prospects. If that was the case, he would potentially be, like, if there's another Sewell in this class, he'd potentially be my pick over Sonny Styles. That's how important I think offensive line is. But I don't really think he's on that level. But just something to mention, because I am open to the idea, if we don't get Styles, of going with a player like Fano or one of these offensive linemen, whether it be Mayoga, I don't know how to pronounce that name, the kid from Miami, or another player we're going to talk about in a second who's going to be screaming up draft boards. I'm open to it, dude, because I love investing in the offensive line. I don't want to punt on a fire on a shiny receiver, especially none of these receivers. And like outside of that, we don't really need an edge. And I'm not loving the down stuff as much as other people love the down stuff at 5. I know that's a big one for the Giants. I'm just not loving it, man. Like, I don't want to make too much of it, but he wasn't a special athlete, man. His combine was pretty disappointing to me, Caleb Downs, from a size standpoint, the way he measured in.
He was over 200, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like,
yeah,
that's something
like 5'10", 5'11". Like, it's not like we're drafting Kyle Hamilton if we're drafting Caleb Downs.
That would be a Sonny Styles pick.
But like, obviously you watch the tape and Downs is one of the best players into college football. So I'm not going to be mad if they take him at 5. By any means, but I'm just not as sold on him being the pick at 5 as a lot of other people are. But another player who might be in the mix now for the Giants at 5, probably a little too early. He's probably more of like the 10 to 15 range he's going to move himself into. It's a gamble for any team that takes him, but it's Georgia tackle Monroe Freeling, who just had an unbelievable combine. Like, if you're looking for, how do you make an offensive tackle in the lab, Nick? You're making Monroe Freeling 6'7", 315, 33.5 vert, and a 9'7" broad, which is just absurd at 6'7", 315, a 4.85 40, which, by the way, I used to not care about 40-yard dashes for offense tackles. Then I saw some really interesting breakdown from, I think it was Sam Schwartzstein, the guy who does the Amazon Prime. And he was a former offensive lineman at Stanford. And he was like, yeah, nobody cares about the 40-yard dash for the lineman because they tell themselves like, oh, a lineman's never going to have to run 40 yards. But he's like, when I tried to run my 40, I ran a 33 because I couldn't finish the 40. And he made a case, like, looking through the numbers of like the linemen in the NFL. And a lot of the linemen that have hit at offensive tackle have had really good 40-yard dashes because he believes it shows longevity, the ability to stay healthy, the ability to, finish that 40-yard dash and finish that at a high rate. So he had a 4.85 40, which is absurd at 315. 34.75 arm length. That's as good as it gets. 10.75 hands, massive hands, 1.72 10-yard split. Really across the board, Monroe Freeling was probably the biggest winner at offensive tackle. And last year, like, it's not like he was terrible. Like, I saw he allowed 7 pressures and 3 sacks with a 3.1% pressure rate allowed. Obviously, he's a bit of a project type player, but you have a huge ceiling if you draft a player like that at offensive tackle.
Absolutely. And with someone like Freeling, I don't know exactly where he's being projected in the draft.
I think now they're saying top 15.
Top 15, yeah. That could be the trade back option if
right.
the Kansas City Chiefs, let's say, or whoever, like someone like that, though, has experience at right tackle, was mostly a left tackle, pretty disciplined when it comes to like not taking penalties. And I haven't watched a ton of tape on him. I just know that he is a mountain of a man out there, and somebody who has the type of control that you want, somebody who's not going to be Evan Neal and end up on the ground all that often. Right. So anybody 6'7", almost 35-inch arms that's crazy. I hate saying 6'7" now, by the way. Brain rot is a terrible thing. But you said it before, and I was like, oh gosh. But so Monroe Freeling is definitely somebody else who caught my eye at the combine as well.
Yeah, another player who caught my eye at the combine will move off of pick 5 to pick 37. And then I'm lucky enough to have a couple friends, one specific good friend who's like he's from the area and is a diehard fan of this team, and sent me like a bunch of tape and cut-ups of him. And I started watching him last night. It's North Dakota State wide receiver Bryce Lance, who had an unreal combine. He ran a 4.34 at 6'3". That's insane. I think he was 6'3", maybe even a tick taller. A 4.34. 4.34. We're talking about like Brian Thomas Jr. shot up draft boards a couple years ago when he ran a 4.3 at his 6'3". Like, you don't usually run a 4.3 at that height. 1.49 10-yard split. That was second best of all wide receivers. Shows insane quickness. A vert of 41.45 inches, fourth best among the position. A broad jump 11.1 to show explosiveness, third best. And then you start to watch him, and it's always hard to see when you watch North Dakota State wide receivers, Nick, because especially I remember this Christian Watson, because like players like Lance just like totally at times like make it really look like a video game against these corners. The corners are just like in such a bad spot when they're playing off coverage, and I'm watching like Lance run a post. He just creates so much separation against these corners, and it just looks like a video game. And like, you have to understand, like, look, Lance is not going to face, just like Christian Watson, he's not going to face a lot of corners that he faces at the level that the North Dakota State plays at. But even if the separation isn't quite as good, but it's up there, I feel like I'm watching Christian Watson, but a better version of Christian Watson without the injuries. And Christian Watson was a player I was insanely high on coming out of college. The Packers saw it too. They took him at the top of round 2. And he's been amazing at the NFL level from all the production standpoint. He's been injured a lot. Christian Watson came back last year after another major injury and looked damn good and became the number 1 down the stretch for the Packers. Bryce Lance is a player that is high on my list for that 37th pick overall.
Yeah, so this is Trey Lance's brother, North Dakota State. And yes, Christian Watson, again, is a little lazy scouting, but he does remind me of Christian Watson as well, dude. This guy has caught 61.5% of his contested catches because he is just so much better than anybody else that's playing at the FCS level. That is a big reason why. But that's why you have the all-star circuit. That's why you have the combine. That's why you have these interviews. And when you watch him, you see that it's not like, yes, he is a much better athlete than all these guys, but it's not just solely that. Like, this guy's skill set can project to the National Football League. The guy averaged 21.2 yards per catch last year, man. So you're talking about a deep threat in a 6'3", 210-pound body or whatever the hell.
Like he's the same frame as Christian Watson, just better numbers across the board.
And I'd say a little like thicker than Watson, though.
Thicker,
too.
Yeah,
you know
definitely
what I mean?
a thicker player. Yeah.
So yeah, Bryce Lance, that's somebody that
he'll probably be a
out.
first-round pick, to be honest. After
he might squeak in. He might squeak, especially in a weaker wide receiver class, especially with dudes like Mekhi Lemon doing whatever. Like, because it wasn't even just the weird interview; it was also like a lot of teams.
Didn't like
what the hell happened during our interview with him too.
He sounded so weird, man. That was crazy. But yeah, so Lance is someone who, if he somehow slips around to, which is possible, you never know with these FCS guys. Christian Watson was a good example of that. And the Packers, I think, traded up then for Watson. He'll be on my radar because I don't love taking receivers, but they got to do it. The Giants have to, fortunately, put themselves in a position where they need to gamble a little bit at receiver. It's not all their fault. Neighbor's injury hurt them a lot. All right, I want to talk about another player who caught my attention, and now I have to watch him because people who watch him are like, dude, you're going to like watching this guy. He's your exact kind of player. He's a two-way player, which is rare to find, and it's Sam Roush, the tight end out of Stanford. I don't know if it's Roush or Roche. We'll find out later, Nick. And it's a crazy tight end class. I mean, Kenyon Sadiq, who's the number 1 guy, he'll be a top 20 pick. He had an insane combine. Eli Stowers had an unbelievable combine as well. He'll probably now work his way into either back end round 1 or early round 2. As far as Roush goes, though, I'll say this, Nick. If you think of like John Harbaugh, there it is again. John Harbaugh's tenure. I always get them wrong in writing too. For fantasy, it's terrible on CBS Sports. But if you think about his tenure with the Ravens, he made a lot of tight end picks. Some bad ones, like the guy they took. Who was the guy? The year they took 2 tight ends in the first round. Who was the guy that the Ravens took that was so bad of it was like 25-year-old prospect?
Oh, you're talking about Hayden Hurst.
Hayden Hurst.
It took him ahead of Lamar Jackson, dude.
Who's still in the NFL, by the way.
Really?
Shout out to Hayden.
Oh, yeah,
Hurst.
he's with the Chargers.
Like, he's on a team.
Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, he's on a team. Like, he didn't like fizzle out to the extent of some bad first-round picks, right? He's not like a DeAndre Baker or something like that. But like, at the same time, like, it was a bad pick, right? But he's also made a lot of good picks.
A lot of that was the Ozzie Newsome effect as well.
True. It's not all Harbaugh, but clearly, like, we've seen, we've heard, we have Roman here now. Like, tight end's going to be a big part of this offense. It's probably going to be a lot of 12 personnel at times. We have Theo for sure. We don't know what's going to happen with Bellinger. We don't know what's going to happen with Manhurts. Fedone is a developmental prospect that was drafted late in the draft. So a player like Sam Roush, when he has a combine like this, the 3rd best athlete in the history of the combine ever, a 9.9 combine score, 6'6", 267. I don't even get this, but he had a 38.5 vert at 6'6", 267, Nick. I actually don't understand how you could have a vert like that and a 10.6 broad. He ran a 4.7 flat at 267 with a 1.61 10-yard split, which is insane. 10-inch hands, Sam Roush. This is the tight end out of Stanford. And everyone I've talked to is be like, you got to watch this kid. He can block. Like that frame, he can block at the line of scrimmage. And Stanford is always good when it comes to developing blocking tight ends and putting guys out there who just can block. So like now, like this kid is way on my radar for the Giants, the potential hot. Like he looks like Theo Johnson type prospect from an athleticism standpoint, but maybe better tape.
Say there are slight differences. Now, I agree that his tape is more crisp from what I've seen than Theo Johnson for the, kind of the maddening and frustrating shit that we've discussed
Yeah.
about Theo Johnson since the Giants drafted him. I love the blocking, dog, but 31-inch arms or whatever the hell it is somewhat problematic when it comes to Roush. Yes. So that's one thing that I think will be dinged, but maybe that would lead him to being a Giant pick. The Giants do acquire some more day 2 picks and maybe he'll slide a little bit, especially since this is freaking a loaded tight end draft class, bro. Like you brought up Sadiq, you brought up Eli Stowers, you brought up the 12 personnel thing. Wan'Dale's probably not going to be a Giant. I mean, that's probably safe to say at this point.
Yeah, we'll talk about tomorrow more, but yeah.
Yeah. So the Giants are going to look for these types of players who can be mismatches, who can actually block, to employ more 12 personnel. And I think Roush fits that. I think Sadiq fits that. Stowers fits that. Sadiq is going to be what, like a top 20 pick, maybe.
I think top 15, top 20.
Yeah, top 15. So like some of these guys are going to slip in the first round. Giants won't even have an opportunity to select them. But I think Roush is one of those good like pulls where it's like he might fall and slide a little bit due to measurables, and he definitely has utility depending on however the Giants want to use him. But the sub 31-inch arms is kind of wild for somebody of his size, like 6'6", 267,
6'7". I think it even was. I know you hate that number, but 6'7". I think he even came in as like just a crazy athlete, more than I expected. Let's talk about a few other players here that caught my attention at the combine, and you as well. Oklahoma wide receiver Deion Burks. I think he could potentially be a slot replacement for Wan'Dale Robinson. From what I've seen at Oklahoma, didn't get the ball a lot, but looked good when he did. And then he came in with an insane combine, a 42.5 vert, which is 98th percentile, a 10.11 broad, which is 92nd. That shows explosiveness and ability to high point the football. And then the 4.33 40-yard dash was kind of insane to see. Reminds me in some ways of a Wan'Dale Robinson type, but a much better athlete with a little bit of a better catch radius as well. So just somebody to keep an eye on. Oklahoma wide receiver Deion Burks. Don't know exactly where he's going to go with that 4.33 40. He's probably going to go higher than people expect. Could be like a Wan'Dale type where like, oh shit, he's picked on earlier on day 2 than anyone ever expected for a team that loves him. Maybe not, though. Maybe he's a player. If we trade back in day 2, we can get him with a couple other picks on day 2 or with an extra pick on day 2. So I'll throw him out there. I don't know.
He's a little like with Wan'Dale, like Wan'Dale, I feel like Wan'Dale's a little shorter and then just thicker, right? Like a thicker receiver than Deion. But the thing about Deion is like he was in a crap offense. Like the Oklahoma was not a good situation. So he's going to get dinged for the lack of production. But there's a better football player within Deion Burks than what he's shown. And I mean, I'm glad he went to the combine and absolutely blew it out of the water. Another slot-ish type of wide receiver the Giants may look to invest in is a New York kid, Skylar Bell from UConn.
Oh, yeah. He had a great combine.
Yeah, another one. Great combine, good tape. 11-1 broad, 41-inch vert, 4.4 flat 40 with a 1.53 10-yard split. So, again, he's coming from a smaller school, UConn. He's beaten up on that level of competition. But that's another player where if the Giants just want to add depth a little bit later on in the draft, it's a name to consider, Skylar Bell from UConn.
I like that. And we'll talk about another player here just because we have to. The Giants are, at least according to reports, we'll see if it comes true, very interested in adding at running back this offseason. I don't really follow that. I don't understand it. Maybe they're more worried about the Scatabo injury than I am, and they know more than we know, which is interesting. Either way, I went by doing it by investing a major asset. They don't have many major assets, but if they are going to invest a pick like 37, which is a major asset, imagine if we do 37 at running back, then what are we going to get? No linemen, no, we just have nothing at risk. Like, it's just crazy to me. But if they do, they might be interested in Arkansas running back Mike Washington. I mean, his combine was out of control. At 223 pounds and 6'1", I think people realize how insane this is at 223 to run a 4.33 40 at 223. That like doesn't even make sense in my head, to be honest. 223 4.33. That's 100th percentile speed score. Obviously, nobody at 223 is supposed to run 4.33. 130.3 burst score. He was fat. He was quick and fast. He's just going to be 22 on draft day. I haven't watched a lot of his tape at Arkansas, but I heard people like it. So just a name to keep an eye on. If the Giants are as serious as it seems they are, according to reports at running back, he may be in play at 37.
Yeah, he's one of the He's one of the ones who easily won this combine. Might even be the biggest winner of this combine, especially
Besides Styles, yeah.
Yeah, but Styles was at least a top 5 pick, right? Like going into it. So at least people thought that he could be. But with Mike Washington, other than Love, like could Washington be like the second running back taken out?
Now he could be, yeah.
I mean, he could be. Like that's a massive win because the running back draft class, like it's not a terrible class, but like there's really not like a second guy where you're like definitely like the other Notre Dame kid Price wasn't a terrible combine, but he could have really seized that number 2 spot behind Love.
And Emmett Johnson had a bad combine, and he could have seized it. I like him on tape, but he had a bad combine.
And then there's Seth McGowan, who has a very unique story out of Kentucky. Had a good season though at Kentucky, but he has a lot of background stuff that it seems like he has overcome, according to a lot of people who are around the Kentucky program. But he's another one who had a really good combine, at least specifically with the explosive drills, just under an 11-foot broad jump with a 42.5 vert, running a 4.49 at 223 pounds.
Yep. Okay, let's talk about a few other players. Mississippi State wide receiver Brennan Thompson. I had heard a lot of buzz about Brennan Thompson before the combine. I started to watch a little bit because somebody I really like and trust in the draft community does a lot of tape breakdowns, sees like potential flashes of a Tyreek Hill type of steal in the draft, like a player who is just going to be known for his speed, but is more of like the Hill separator type with the speed. And then he comes out and runs a 4.26 40 at the combine, which is tied for the 5th fastest since 2013. He also came out with a 1.54 10-yard split. So it's not just the deep speed, it's the quickness. It's 86th percentile. I saw something that I'm missing now in the notes that I lost about.
Man, I could fill in if we're talking about Brennan Thompson, man. Like he does have like he's gone speed. Like,
do you also see the potential to be like a Hill or just the he's gone speed? Because like you can have the John Ross he's gone speed, or you could have like the complete package, like the separation with Tyreek Hill, the toughness.
But even when Tyreek came out, he didn't have that really, right? Like he had to work up to that.
Into that. You're right.
Yeah, I mean he has ability to like track the football. Like I think there are certainly nuances when it comes to that, but he's also smaller. He's also pretty smaller than Hill. Like he's 160. Yeah. 164, I think, is what he was at the combine, right?
Wow.
Now Hill's 5'9" or 5'8" even, but I want to say he's like 180 or something. Like that's like a 12-pound difference. Or
I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah, please
look. Definitely look thicker.
Like to me, Brennan Thompson looks small out there. Like looks really small. But I do think he could be an asset if he can stay healthy. And I need to do a full detailed breakdown.
You were right about that, by the way. 5'8.5". He wasn't tall, Tyreek Hill, but he was I think he was 180, 191 at his pro, or 185 at his pro day.
Yeah. But the thing is, Brennan's, I don't know if he's going to go, like, where is he looking to get drafted? Like 5th round?
I think now it'll be back end of round 1 or early day 2 after this.
I don't think it'll be back end of round 1.
Maybe not. No, back end of round 1, no shot. But it might be the early day 2.
So I was thinking still like day 3, but like maybe like 4th, 5th round. But it really depends. Like
and at that speed, I don't think there's any chance of.
Yeah, you might be right, especially because he does have some tape to back it up as well. But he's an interesting, because again, there are teams like the Packers who will never like take a dude like this because of the size limitations. Right. But there are that speed and his ability to take the top off the defense. There are certain plays that I've seen of him just watching, like again, not all 22, but watching him play Mississippi State play on Saturday, where it was like he would make a catch, completely stop. Like it was like a deep post curl, right? And he would stop in between the safety, find the soft spot, make the catch. And then it was, I'm going to start and I'm going to go. And it would eliminate.
That's the Tyreek Hill right there. That's the Tyreek Hill right there, right? Yes. Exactly what you just said. The stop, you catch the ball, you stop in the middle of the field, and then you find that soft spot and you run through it.
Yes, and he's doing this against like SEC level competition. Right. He had a 1,000-yard season this past year, caught 65.5% of his throws, 6 touchdowns. So I mean, like he has that production. Some teams are probably going to get scared off by 164 pounds. But I think there's definitely like day 3. Yes, I think you bring a guy like that in and see if you can catch lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, he may not be in the range for the Giants, but he definitely caught my attention. Jeff Caldwell, the wide receiver at Cincinnati, certainly caught my attention. 6'5", 216 with a 4.31. I mean, what the actual F is that? Like that doesn't have the combine is just getting crazy. Some of these numbers are like insane. Like if you saw that 5 years ago, people would be like, is he now a first-round pick? He's not, by the way, but they'd be like, is he now a first? Because like no one's ever done it. Been 6'5", 216 and run a 4.31 or come anywhere close with a 42-inch vert. Chance to high put the football. I've heard. I have not obviously not seen a lot of Jeff Caldwell.
But neither have I.
from what I've heard, he's kind of just a raw project type pick. But I'm obviously intrigued because if you're 6'5", 216, 4.31 speed and a 42-inch vert, if you get the right coaching, you can turn into a difference-making player. The NFL, remember, this is still a size and speed game. Like if you are that much better of an athlete than your opponent that's matching up against you at corner, and your corner doesn't have the best skill set or technique, he's either going to hold you and draw a flag, pass interference with you, draw a flag, or you're just going to get burned, as we've seen a lot at the NFL level. So I'm always interested in mismatches. Another guy I'll just throw in.
The Tennessee wide receiver. Well, no, see, this guy's bigger
Brazil?
than no, Deonta Thornton from last year.
Yeah.
He was somebody where like Jeff Caldwell, like
just I could see that comp.
Yeah, just based off of the size. But even Caldwell is like freaking 11 pounds more than him. I didn't realize it was that big of a difference.
Yeah. You might be frozen for a second.
I am, yes.
If you want to refresh. I'll throw a couple names out there while you're doing that and you're coming back into the show. Let's see. I think I got you here. You're coming in. I'll just throw this name out there. We don't have to talk much about him, but I'm always intrigued by this on day 3 because I know, for example, the tape at quarterback is going to have him on the board for a while. But you know what? If you want to tell me, like, I could take Shane Lemieux again, who I know sucks and has no like athletic upside to play offensive line at the NFL level, and I knew it when we drafted him in the round 5 or whatever the hell it is.
Talk about Shane Lemieux?
Yeah, Shane Lemieux.
Oh, nice. I left it for
me. I could take Shane Lemieux again, who I know has no chance to work, but he did play a lot of snaps and he started a lot of games and he plays a position that is valuable. Or I could just gamble on the skill set of Tylen Green and try to convert him to tight end or receiver at 6'6" with a 4.37 40-yard dash at 6'6" to whatever it was, and with a 43.5 vert. Yeah, if he's sitting around on day 3 in my 6th-round pick, Nick, I'm taking that every time if I'm a GM. I don't want these guys who don't translate to the next level but have a lot of tape. And maybe you get lucky occasionally and hit like a Micah McFadden if you're lucky, and that's like your best case scenario. I want to take a chance on athletes at that point. So he's intriguing the hell out of me. Anyone who's 6'6" and has a 43.5 vert with 4.37 speed. Remember, sub 4.4 speed. I'm intrigued. I know he's a quarterback, right? And he's going to give it maybe he's given a chance to back up somewhere. But I'm intrigued by him as a wide receiver. And that's just how always going to be. And I've seen it happen before. It's not going to be the first guy who converted from quarterback to receiver.
Yeah, I mean, Terrell Pryor is probably the most successful.
Yeah.
Would that be the most successful?
Well, Julian Edelman, but that's different.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. But yeah, absolutely. I'm right there with you. Arkansas just freaking bat 1,000. It seems like at the
I don't know how they did that. When I saw that this kid ran a 4.37 at quarterback, and they had Mike Washington at running back, who we just talked about earlier. Like, something went wrong with that offensive coordinator. He should have ran like the old school Georgia Tech triple option with those two. Honestly, dude, he should have converted his team to a triple option. And how do you lose at that point? You were going to win more football games, honestly, with that old Georgia Tech offense when they had Calvin and some of those players. But look, I'm not pounding the table for a prospect like Tylen Green, but that's just where my head is at. I'm more interested in prospects like that. I want to talk a little bit. We've talked a lot of receivers here. I want to talk a little bit about the offensive linemen who stood out to me, because there were a lot of good testing offensive linemen. I want to start with Kentucky interior offensive lineman Jalen Farmer, who had a 4.93 40 time. And again, we talked earlier about why that might be important. 35-inch arms. A lot of people who've watched this tape are big fans of Farmer. I haven't watched a lot of Farmer, but he's someone who intrigues me as a potential pick for the Giants on day 2 to really help to start, make that investment into their offensive line, start to build out a team that can win in the interior through the draft.
Yeah, Jalen Farmer. I haven't watched any tape on Kentucky's offense yet, so I would need to get to that. But there's other guys too, man. Like, I'm glad you brought up Tylen Green, but Iowa center Logan Jones.
Oh yeah.
There's the other Iowa offensive lineman that everyone's talking about, Jennings Dunker, because of the red mullet that everyone's losing their minds over. But he had a 4.63 short shuttle. That's Jennings Dunker who did that. When it comes to Logan Jones, he's just one of those first team All-American, 32-inch vert, 9.2 broad, which is good for someone of his size, and then a 4.9 40. It's like offensive linemen that are just getting more and more athletic as the training is getting specified to a freaking T for these guys when they go to the combine to perform at their optimal. Some of those big boys are definitely something to look in. Kalen Rutledge from Georgia Tech as well, offensive guard. It's another one who had
another huge standout.
Excellent combine. So there are players, and this goes to the point that you made earlier, Dan. Like, we only have 2 picks in the top 100.
and one at 5. Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
and one of them's at 5. Like, that sucks, man,
We'll
because
talk
there's
a little bit on tomorrow's show, which we'll record today, about like potential way to get another one of those picks via maybe Kayvon Thibodeau, something like that. So we'll see. But yeah, you're right. It is frustrating, man. This is why I'm never like, me and you, we hate not having picks in the draft. This is the most fun time to talk about the Giants. And like, I just want all the picks we can get. But I will say this, the two players you mentioned, Logan Jones, the Iowa center, and then Jennings Dunker, the Iowa tackle who might convert into guard. Look, there's a history of Iowa coaching and development that stands out with these offensive linemen, these tight ends coming in the NFL knowing how to block. So that is not lost on me. And when guys like this, like Jennings Dunker, and when guys like Logan Jones, those two linemen, stand out at the combine from an athleticism standpoint with the coaching and development that they got at Iowa, that intrigues me, dude. I feel like there's a high hit rate. And someone like Logan Jennings, first team All-American, Remington Trophy Award winner, 4.9040, which is insane for a center. 9'2" broad, 32-inch vert, was one of the best athletes at the combine at the center position. Like, I think ultimately speaking, and he has the wrestling background as well, I think ultimately speaking, he'll be drafted after where John Michael Schmitz is drafted, and he's a much better bet than John Michael Schmitz. And it just goes to show, like, a player like JMS was just shot up draft boards because there was a bad center class. Don't draft into bad classes. Don't be the team that does this shit. Don't be like, oh, he's the second best center on the board. He's maybe the best center on the board. We're getting him at 55. It's a steal. No, it's not a steal. These rankings mean nothing. You have to evaluate the prospects. It's not where they stack up against the current class. It's where they stack up overall. And so I can already see it happening, man. This dude is going to go, Logan Jones, after JMS, and he's going to be a much better bet by far than JMS ever was. Because JMS was never the athlete like this. And it's frustrating to me, but it is what it is. We did it. It was a total need pick by Joe Shane. I think I'm getting value here. And hopefully he can develop into a decent player. He was better last year, JMS, but I'm open to Logan Jones if we get some more picks, dude, because I'm not settled by any means at the center position. But Dunker is the interesting one to me because the 4.63 short shuttle, dude, if he does convert inside the guard, maybe even if he doesn't have to, I think most people think he does with the arm length and with the and kind of just the reach. I'm very intrigued by him at 37 overall for the Giants because I think he can be a mauler. I think he can be someone who could be a tone setter on the offensive line for the Giants, and maybe they're starting right guard for the next 10 years. So he's someone who's like Lance and him are like probably top of my radar right now for 37 overall. So I'll be very interested in him. But you mentioned Rutledge, who I also think could be a really good player. I mean, his combine was insane. 4.54 short shuttle, even better than Dunning's 4.63. 7.54 3 cone. These are two of the best numbers you'll see ever. With a 5.05 40-yard dash, 6'4", 316, 32.5 vert, which is elite for an offensive lineman. That's Kalen Rutledge out of Georgia Tech. He may be more of like a mid-day 2 pick potentially, but somebody who's definitely on my radar as well. You mentioned those three. A couple players I'll just shout out before we get out of here. Georgia State wide receiver Ted Hurst, 6'4", 206. 4.42 with a 1.55 10-yard split and an 11.3 broad jump. That is insane testing numbers for a wide receiver. And I don't know where he'll go from Georgia State, but I think he'll be like a surprise pick on maybe day 2, but he could end up falling to day 3 just based on playing at Georgia State. He's someone who has my attention as well. Georgia guard Micah Morris had an unreal combine, 5th best RAS score among guards since 1987. 6'5", 334 with a 5.09 40 and a 1.73 10-yard split. That's Georgia guard Micah Morris. I don't know where he'll go, but that's interesting to me. You mentioned Seth McGowan, the running back out of Kentucky, 4.49 at 6', 223 with a 42.5 vert and a 10.11 broad. He's going to be jumping onto radars because people like his tape. I'm curious to see if he jumps up the running back rankings and goes like 3rd or 4th off the board there. And then finally, one more player who I think I wanted to get your opinion on. I'm not sure if you've watched him, but a potential pick for the Giants at 37 if he's still on the board. A project pick, but I like him. Mac, and I don't know how to pronounce his name, but at Arizona State, the offensive tackle prospect, Max Heinekor. Is that potentially right? Ahinekor?
Let's go with it. Yes.
Ahinekor. Scored a 991 RAS out of 10. That's 14th best of 1,500 tackles since 1987 with a 491 40-yard dash, 6'6", 321. Some people think he might have to move to guard the NFL level. I think he could potentially play tackle. He's a bit of a project type pick, but like I've seen cut-ups of him and you watch him and you're like, this could be a really good offensive lineman at the NFL level. He has some pop on contact. He plays with aggression at times. He has that 6'6" frame, and obviously he's a major athlete.
Smooth kick slide too. You watch him at the
Yep.
combine. He's moving smooth out there, unlike certain other offensive linemen that the Giants drafted high. Eric
Well, let's say
Flowers.
you take him, by the way, Nick, and you re-sign Jermaine Illuminor, and we take him at 37, for example. Let's say that happens. You have options, dude. Like you could put Illuminor at guard, you could put him at guard. And then maybe he's your long-term project or your long-term solution at right tackle. There's just so many advantages to drafting offensive linemen, in my opinion, and building your roster from the inside out rather than the outside in.
Yeah, and with him specifically too, like he was down at the Senior Bowl. He's new to football. Like the
Right.
rawness isn't because like he doesn't know how to like he didn't play up until recently. This is a basketball player. So he has like basketball level skills, but when you watch his feet, you can see like the potential of just not how light and quick he is on his feet, but they're crisp and they go where they need to be. There's just refining on how he's going to use his hands and things of that nature, and just playing with a little bit more consistency that he can unlock. That's another player that I'm like, I want to watch Arizona State's offense for him and Tyson.
Yeah, of course. I think just to show how new he is, he never played football when he enrolled at East Los Angeles College to play college football from 2021 to 2022. That's crazy. Just had never even picked up a football helmet until that point.
And rules, man, for offensive linemen just in general, right? Like obviously size, length, all that kind of shit, but like your feet, bro. It starts with the feet.
Yeah,
like, do you have the footwork? How do you move and how do you mirror? And when you watch him, I was watching him at the Senior Bowl. And like watching his feet and just like how he's just like mirroring these dudes and staying in front of him and having active hands, there's a lot of tools to work with there. A lot of tools that an offensive line coach would like to get their hands on, because there's a high ceiling with a player like that. And that'd be somebody in consideration, even if the Giants do bring back Illuminor, as you brought up, not obviously in day one, but on day two.
Yeah, I love that breakdown by you. A player who he just somewhat, just from the newness of football, just like reminds me of the rawness of who I loved in the draft. And a lot of people hated because he was an older prospect. And then the Colts took him and they were right about him. Was Bernard, I think it was Bernard Ryman, the offensive tackle. I loved him in that class. And I knew he was going to be a hit. And nobody seemed to like him because of the age or whatever it was. And then he fell in the draft a little bit. I don't know if he fell, but some people are like, maybe he'll be a first round pick. And he was a hit. Just taking a chance on athletes who can move from a footwork standpoint at the offensive line. It's generally where I'm at. I mean, maybe it's a little bit of being shell shocked from Evan Neal and watching the feet, watching that kind of footwork and that kind of foot speed. But who knows? One final guy before we close out that I want to throw, just because I'm talking about, watching through the combine and guys who stand out to me when I watch the drills. And I'm like, all right, I don't know anything about this guy. J. Michael Sturdvian, I think it was, out of Florida, 6'3", 207, ran a 4.4 flat with a 1.54 10-yard split, a 39-inch vert, and a 10-11 broad. That's the 17th most athletic receiver out of 3,844 since 1987. So, if you're an athlete like that, you stand out to me, I definitely want to at least watch your tape a little bit and see, like, is there a guy here? Is there potential to work with here? Because if you really remember it, dude, even one of the Giants have only had like one late wide receiver hit outside of Victor Cruz since then. And it was Darius Slayton, if you want to call it that, which it was. It's fifth round and he's gone this far and he has this. And when you think of Slayton, a lot of it was you watch his tape, you saw the athletic traits, you saw the speed, you didn't see the production. Those are the players that always interest me at wide receiver, because why didn't you see the production? Is it their fault, or was it the quarterback's fault, or was the offensive coordinator's fault and the offensive design's fault? A lot of the times when it lands in those last two buckets, like with Nico Collins, for example, back then, dating back to him out of Michigan, I like those prospects. Those are like the prospects that stand out to me more than anyone, because I see a lot of value in drafting those types of players.
Yeah, so do I. And his gauntlet was smooth, man. It's similar to Lance, dude. Like that's another thing. You want to watch them maintain that line, see the concentration, catch, drop. Right. And I like a good gauntlet drill when a receiver can really toe that line well, and they look like they have. Some of them are terrible, but some of them were stuck out, and that one was nice.
Yep. All right. So we'll close out there. Thank you so much for listening to the Big Blue Banter podcast. Please hit the like button if you haven't already. We need you to help get the show back off the ground. We took a little bit of lull. I took some time off. The last podcast did not do great on the YouTube. The algorithm was not treating us amazing. So help us get that back up. Help us improve the algorithm by liking this video right now if you haven't already, and then commenting, leaving a comment. Those two things will help us get back up the algorithm for this time. It's about to be really busy with free agency. We'd like to get back up your algorithm. So thank you so much for helping us improve the show by doing that. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you soon.